All right. So as it pertains to NFL quarterbacks, there are three in the league right now that are atop the list in terms of guys that are going to be available that have been amidst the most talk so far, as we're still 3 weeks out from the NFL legal tampering period beginning, where teams can start making moves and trying to get these guys as members of their teams. And those three quarterbacks that are in the league right now, not talking about the guys who are coming into the league via the draft, but those three guys that are scheduled to either be free agents, going to be released or can be traded for are Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. Those are the three big ones. I'll touch on, the I don't know, the B tier of quarterbacks that are scheduled to be free agents and whatnot a little bit as well. But those are kind of the three big fish when it comes to conversation. So I guess being the analyst that I am, I want to be a good one and put my name on it. So I guess that's what we'll do today. Before I continue, though, if you're new here, feel free to subscribe. Believe me, I know there's nothing more annoying than somebody on YouTube saying, "Hey, subscribe to my channel." So if you want to tell me to piss off and don't want to subscribe, cool, I get it. If you do, though, I will love you. But if you don't, I will not hate you. But it will mean a lot to me if you do. In the past 8 months, I've actually started showing like attention to this, and we're almost at 500 subs. So if you want to subscribe, it would make me very happy. If you don't and want to tell me to piss off and stop telling you to subscribe, I understand that too. But without further ado, let's start this. I'll start with Kirk Cousins because I know that as a Steelers fan, he's the one that I've been pounding the table for so far this offseason. But also understanding how the Steelers work, I highly doubt that that does happen. Like I'll remain hopeful until pen is put to paper for a contract for Kirk Cousins. But understanding how the Steelers work, I highly doubt that he's going to be the one that they pursue. I think Atlanta is the ultimate destination for Kirk Cousins. His wife is from that area, and if you look at what they have, I mean, that is, we talk about teams that could go from, who could be this team's Matthew Stafford, who could be X team's Matthew Stafford in terms of, hey, they're a quarterback away and they just need that guy to get them over the hump. The Atlanta Falcons are that. Their defense is really solid, have the best safety in the game, maybe right now with Jesse Bates, who had a tremendous 2023. Their run defense was really good last year. And you look at their skill position guys that they have on offense. We know how good Bijan Robinson is, Drake London, Kyle Pitts. They are a quarterback away from being head and shoulders the best team in the NFC South. When you look at Tampa Bay's situation, where it looks like Mike Evans is going to be playing elsewhere, depending on what happens with his contract, this is a team that if they land a Kirk Cousins, then I don't see what would stop them from winning the NFC South. And in a situation where he would be familiar with the offense, it's going to be a McVay-esque offense. Zach Robinson as the offensive coordinator, joining Raheem Morris, new head coach coming over from Los Angeles. Similar offense to what Kirk Cousins ran in Minnesota. A lot of outside zone, a lot of working off play action, utilizing the middle of the field. It's going to be very similar to that. Kirk wouldn't have to, it wouldn't take him very long. It wouldn't take him long regardless where he goes, but this is going to be a very easy transition if he does end up in Atlanta, which I ultimately think he will. It makes sense for all parties involved. And for a team like Atlanta, who's felt like they were on the come up over the past couple of years, it would be smart of them to just say, all right, look, let's go out, let's get Kirk, and let's try to make a run at this thing, especially in the NFC that feels like it's pretty wide open. The AFC features, a ton of elite quarterbacks. The NFC is more of elite rosters. So if you're Atlanta and you can get a really, really good quarterback in a conference that's wide open, you could make a run at it if you go and get Kirk Cousins. In terms of Justin Fields, I'm going to say exactly what I just said about the Steelers, because I think he's still favored to end up in Pittsburgh, or the Steelers are still the favorites to land him. And, when thinking about it, yes, it obviously makes sense for the Steelers. Same reason that it makes sense for them to pursue Kirk Cousins. They're a team that is talented. They're very similar to Atlanta, where they moved on from a Hall of Fame quarterback and they went through, a veteran guy, Marcus Mariota, a veteran guy, Mitch Trubisky, a rookie with Desmond Ridder, rookie Kenny Pickett, and both had similar results. It's just that the Steelers have a better head coach and were able to get 9-8 seasons and a 10-7 season out of it because Mike Tomlin's a good coach. And now, oddly enough, the head coach of those Atlanta Falcons is now in Pittsburgh as the offensive coordinator. So weird how that turns out. But again, the Steelers, should they make a move for Justin Fields? Yes, especially if Kirk Cousins does end up in Atlanta. Because I talked about this before, there is a risk with it that Fields doesn't tap into that potential that most people see being there. His physical talent is evident, but if he ends up just not being the guy, then yeah, you traded away probably a second round pick and a day 3 pick for a guy that didn't end up panning out. And while that is a risk, it is a risk with far higher upside than just rolling Kenny Pickett out there, who we know can't play, or bringing back Mason Rudolph, who, congrats to him for having a really solid 4-game stretch at the end of last year, but a guy who isn't going to be a world beater in the AFC and isn't going to be a long-term franchise quarterback. Justin Fields has the potential to be that. And the risk reward, for trading for Justin Fields compared to keeping Kenny Pickett or bringing back Mason Rudolph, they aren't comparable. So it makes sense for the Steelers to pursue Fields. And you look around the league, I don't see too many other places that make all that much sense. I know a lot of people have been saying, okay, the Las Vegas Raiders. Luke Getsy being there kind of disqualifies them for me. Some people are like, oh yeah, Luke Getsy. He had Justin Fields in Chicago, easy transition. The reason that Justin Fields didn't tap into that potential is because of the Luke Getsy offense and the fact that it isn't good. So once Luke Getsy became the offensive coordinator in Las Vegas, I immediately crossed them off the Justin Fields list. That just doesn't make sense. So I don't foresee that taking place. I would be very shocked if he does end up in Las Vegas. That's again a move that just doesn't make sense to me in terms of what's best for Justin Fields. And I don't think he wants to be around Luke Getsy in that offense anymore. So, regardless of the fact that he would have better weapons, with Devontae Adams being there and, Michael Mayer at tight end, I just don't see him going with Luke Getsy and running that back in that offense, a scheme that's not very good. If you want a really good breakdown of it, JT O'Sullivan on his Quarterback School YouTube channel did at least one breakdown of the Bears offense. He might have done more than one. I've only watched one. But it is a very good breakdown, the QB School, that you should absolutely watch. And it explains why the offense is so bad in better ways than I can, coming from a former NFL quarterback. So definitely go and watch that if you can, on why the Luke Getsy offense is very bad. But as it pertains to Fields and the Steelers, I just don't see too many other places that would make sense. Maybe Denver, especially because Russell Wilson will no longer be there, as at least it's extremely likely that he won't be there. But I just don't see anybody else where it would make sense to trade for Justin Fields, at least as it pertains to him being a starter. And if you're trading for him, you're not trading, a second-round pick for a backup quarterback. You're just not doing that. So Pittsburgh's really one of the only places that comes to my head when, discussing bringing him in. Maybe the New England Patriots take a swing at it. That wouldn't necessarily be a bad move for them. But at the same time, they hold a top 3 draft pick, which they're going to use on a quarterback. So that kind of scratched them off the list for me as well. So Pittsburgh is kind of the only team that makes sense. And because of that, they might be able to give less than what many are expecting Justin Fields to go for. A lot of people are saying that he'll go for probably a second-round pick. If nobody else is in the market, they could probably say, hey, we'll give you a third and a sixth. So depending on what the market looks like, Pittsburgh might be able to, especially if Justin Fields ends up being good, they might be able to swindle the Chicago Bears once again in a trade. But because there is a lack of a market, at least at face value, for Justin Fields, I think Pittsburgh makes the most sense. I'm hesitant to say that that's where he'll go, just because I know how this team operates, and it just feels like it's going to be Kenny Pickett and Mason Rudolph, or Kenny Pickett and Ryan Tannehill. A middle of the pack, not good quarterback that they bring in to be the week 1 starter or compete in camp. But I'll try to remain hopeful, and I'll say that Justin Fields is the guy that ends up in Pittsburgh. But I'm not confident about that. That's more the hopeful fan in me saying that's where he'll end up. Russell Wilson is the other one. Again, he's another guy that's been linked to Pittsburgh. It feels like every quarterback's been linked to Pittsburgh for obvious reasons. There's a couple that make sense here, both of which I've already touched on. I think New England makes sense as a veteran guy to have in the room that you can bring in on a cheap deal. And if need be, he can be a bridge quarterback if you take a Drake May or a Jaden Daniels, if you don't want to throw them to the fire right away. And he can be a guy that starts for half a year or a year, even if you want to, really just make sure that Jaden Daniels or Drake May are ready. Mac Jones being there, Bailey Zappi being there, you need a veteran guy to help these guys along. And Mac Jones and Bailey Zappi, I think Russell Wilson brings a lot more value, both in his ability to play, the fact that he's, been to 2 Super Bowls and won 1. I think that experience would also, just be able to pass on that wisdom to whomever they take at quarterback. I think just brings value in and of itself. So New England makes sense in that manner, where if they wanted to have, a respected veteran who has been elite at points in his career to help bring along the next franchise guy that they select. If he doesn't want to do that, though, and he wants to be able to start for at least a year, Las Vegas, it would be an upgrade over what they had last year in terms of Jimmy Garoppolo and Aiden O'Connell. Would it be his vibe? I don't know. But I think that there definitely would be something in him that will want to stick it to Denver. And look, Russell Wilson, any professional athlete, if they're done wrong and think that they can still play and play productively, they're going to want to stick it to whomever doubted them. And if he has a chance to play Denver twice in a season, I could see that being a pairing that would make sense. And again, the Raiders could be a team that also take a quarterback in the early rounds that they would want to have for the future. I don't think Aiden O'Connell's that guy, but he played a lot of football last year, and if something were to happen, they can throw him in. But I don't think he's the future of that franchise. I don't think the Raiders think he's the future of that franchise. But if you're the Raiders, you can get a cheap guy, similar to the reasons for the Patriots. You can get a guy like Russell Wilson on a cheap veteran deal to, start off the season, if need be, play the entire season, not, throw games away. Like, looking at his stat line last year, it was like 26 touchdowns to 8 picks. That's a little inflated, to what he actually did on the field. He only averaged 6.9 yards per attempt. So it was a lot of, check downs and deep balls are kind of still his game. He's not going to beat you in the intermediate. It's okay. Hey, we're not going to ask you to do a lot, but when it's 3rd and 4, we need to get that 3rd and 4. So he's, I've made this comp before, the old saying, let Russ cook. He's not a 5-star chef right now. Last year they just asked him to be a microwave, man. Just heat us up when we need it. And if he can go to the Raiders and just be, a solid microwave, help Devontae Adams, help a guy like Michael Mayer, and there are other skill position guys. The defense played well last year. If they can add a few more pieces on that side of the ball, could they compete for a wild card spot? Sure. So I think that Vegas, of the teams that would remain in the quarterback market, would make the most sense out of these teams. New England wouldn't shock me per se, but I don't think that he's going to a place with an established starter. I saw that Mike Tannenbaum of ESPN said he should go to the Jets and be Aaron Rodgers' backup. I don't think that's happening. I don't think we're going to see a situation like that. But a situation for teams like Vegas and New England, who are going to be in situations where either A, they take a quarterback early and need a respected veteran bridge to help them get along while also playing before they feel comfortable putting them in, or if they just need a bridge guy, for the next year or two while they try to figure out what they're going to do for the long-term future, like Vegas. And again, Vegas, if I'm Russell Wilson or if I have a chance to play Denver twice, I'm doing it. And I think that's why they make the most sense. So out of those 3, I think Kirk Cousins ends up in Atlanta. Justin Fields goes to Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson ends up in Las Vegas. There will be a few other guys, Jacoby Brissett will get, high-end backup offers. I think Baker Mayfield ultimately stays in Tampa Bay after the season that he had last year. It'll be interesting to see what the dynamic is in Tampa Bay with Mike Evans, if he stays or goes. In terms of where Jacoby Brissett would go, maybe a team like the Jets, like I already pointed out, to be Aaron Rodgers' backup, a team like that. And then, hey, if the Steelers don't end up doing anything, I could absolutely see them taking a Jacoby Brissett as their, quote-unquote Kenny Pickett quarterback competition. So there's, a few other guys notable names that'll be thrown around. I do think that Baker Mayfield ultimately stays in Tampa Bay, but the big three: Kirk to Atlanta, Justin Fields to Pittsburgh, and Russell Wilson to the Las Vegas Raiders. I think of those being the big three, I think that those are where those guys end up.